Hey there, welcome to another episode of On Our Pursuit. You might notice that I've deviated away from wearing Pursuit-only brands as of late, and I'm rocking a Municipal crew neck. The reason being, I just got done recording with co-founder and CEO of Municipal, Harry Arnett, and it was a phenomenal conversation. As you're gonna hear, I have a little bit of history thanks to Twitter with Harry. When I launched Pursuit clothing brand, he gave me a friendly tweet, and then this interview came by tagging Municipal again in a complimentary way and him chiming in and me asking him to come. So it wasn't on a Thursday, but this was another shoot your shot and it worked in my favor. A great conversation with Harry. I want you to pay attention to a few things. First, I want you to pay attention to how Harry talks about the importance of staying in the struggle. When you're on your pursuit, whether it is building a business or changing jobs or just changing anything, it can be scary, it can be hard. And as Harry talks about, it's important to stay in that struggle and you'll learn why. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is when he talks about balancing self-belief and confidence with reality. And there's a kind of cool exchange because I talk about how I'm an eternal optimist and how basically if I set my sights on something, I think and I believe I'm going to accomplish it, whatever it might be. And he challenged and pushed back a little bit to make sure that that self-belief is founded in something and not just arrogance. I'd like to think it's not arrogance to me, but it was a great conversation, a great back and forth, and a lot of good wisdom from Harry. And then finally, I want you to pay attention to how important it was to him and is to him to build something with Municipal that matters. And I think that no matter what Harry might build or have built, building something that matters, that has impact, that helps other people is a part of his DNA would be really important. And I think a lot of you, when you're on your pursuit and you're thinking about making changes, you're going to be wanting to do things for impact. So listen to that as motivation for you to continue to pursue that thing that's going to allow you to build something or be something that matters in the grand scheme of things. And ultimately, as he talks about, write your own book. So it's a great conversation. Check the show notes over on the blog for links to Municipal. I mentioned their mentorship program. There's a link to that. I'll have all of Harry's social media as well. He's a great CEO, a great man, great family man. I had a lot of fun getting to know him. And I'm looking forward to the round 2 that I self-invited myself to in California next time I'm in San Diego to hit some of the questions we didn't get in person. So with that, let's get to today's episode of On Our Pursuit with Harry Arnett. I shared with you before as we were kind of back and forth getting started, the tweet a few years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, when I started Pursuit and I launched my first sweatshirts and I tagged Municipal as a brand that I looked up to, wanted to emulate in ways on my own. Like my originality, my creativity is usually inspired by others, and then I go do my own, but it's inspired by that. So looking at what you all have built, the branding, the marketing, the storytelling, who you all appear to be, like Municipal really resonated with me. And the fact that I tweeted I'm starting this brand and you gave me some words of encouragement after I was already following you and looking up to you was like really, really cool. And then you fast forward, I another tweet where I tag you guys and you chime in and here we are talking. So I'm going to make sure we find that tweet and bring it back. But I just wanted to share with everybody like why I'm so excited for this conversation, not because it's going to be a great one, but also kind of how Municipal is something I look up to. And now I'm getting a chance to talk to the CEO. So I'm going to shut up for a second because I always like to give my guests the opportunity to do their own introduction. I know it's a podcast no, but I think I would explain who I am different than someone who researched me. So Harry, I would love for you to introduce yourself to listeners and viewers. And if you can find a little opportunity to talk about growing up in a house with a creator and what that meant, seeing your dad's creativity and expression and what that meant to you for your journey, I think that would be really insightful to the Pursuit audience.
Let's start from the beginning. So I am probably on the back half of being middle-aged, although, being associated with Mark, I definitely feel like I'm going to live longer than I did before I met Mark. And I did grow up in a house. My dad was involved in the arts. So he was a curator, collector, scholar on an emerging field that was really the best way to think about it is he wanted to introduce marginalized and underrepresented artists into the mainstream art world, and self-taught African-American artists, specifically from the South. And he'd had a career in the arts that he had made himself. And when I was a kid, that always seemed so alien to me, particularly where I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Everyone had a fairly traditional, typical upbringing and background. Dads were lawyers, doctors, insurance agents, just professional, kind of a classic professional suburban community. And my dad was so far out on the edges in terms of what he was doing, and very avant-garde, misunderstood, I think, by almost everybody, and maybe even inside the house to some degree, especially by me, who always wondered who are all these interesting characters coming in and out of our house, as you can imagine, in the 70s and 80s in the South, with artists of all different types, of different ethnicities, of different sexual orientations, just the diversity that I was exposed to as a young age wouldn't start to make an impact on me, I think, until later. But in turn, as an influence, getting to see the way that my father was wired and trying to align the things that I would later start to influence my own decisions. I wish that I had appreciated those things at a much earlier age. But he was just, if looking back on it, a great role model of aligning passion, talent, and purpose together, and pursuing wherever those three things were aligned, pursuing those threads instead of being more skewed towards one or the other, or especially being skewed by what society or community would have necessarily or would have probably guided him towards. And he learned that at a very young age, in his 20s, when he had a pretty traditional, if you can say that, in the 60s viewpoint on what he wanted to do. He knew he wanted to travel. He knew he wanted to seek out other cultures. So he looked for a way to do that through a traditional means, and then realized pretty early that wasn't going to work for him. So fast forward to me, I took a little bit longer to develop that. I got out of college and knew I wanted to be connected to something that was connected to my passion, sport, athletics, and took a job. And I knew I didn't really want to be stuck behind a desk. I didn't want to be stuck in kind of administrative roles. And so I actually, my first job out of college, I went to work in media, broadcast media, for radio stations, sports radio, and did that for a little while. And there was always something about those, the actual job, that I knew was not an awesome fit for me. And I ended up leaving there, going to work with my dad for a period of time in helping bring this, the work of Southern African American artists to the forefront, to the public eye. And I realized along the way, you can kind of detect, learning is kind of important to Harry. I realized there was so much I didn't know about building a business or building a brand, or just kind of the fundamentals of how do you create stuff in a commercial context, that led me to go get an MBA, graduate business degree. And I did that, went to Duke in North Carolina, of course, and got out and had a lot of the same questions. Now what the hell am I going to do? And I ended up going back to work with my dad for a period of time, and then ultimately making a transition over into athletic athletic gear, worked for Russell Athletic. People know that brand. Left there after a little while for a lot of the same reasons I'm describing, just needed to be in something that was more dynamic, and always had a passion for golf, and ended up out here on the West Coast working for a couple of golf companies. The one I worked for most recently, I was the executive vice president at Topgolf Callaway Brands, the new name of Callaway, Topgolf Callaway Brands. And again, there was always something about me that was in my DNA, now looking back on it, that was really wanting the freedom and the adrenaline boost of starting something from scratch. And so that's how Municipal came about through many, many years of knowing Mark and talking about brands, and ultimately deciding that we wanted to do this. We wanted to go for it, create our own brand. And we really felt like there was a giant hole, not only in the market for what people wanted to consume, but really how a brand connected and interacted with consumers on a much deeper level to help people get unstuck from whatever barriers in front of them to really go for it and achieve the dreams that sometimes we sit in rooms that become unrealized. So we wanted to inspire and motivate people to feel like they're unstoppable in those pursuits. And Mark certainly represents that. I would like to think that I'm trying to live up to that. And we started this company in 2019, right at the end of 2019. We were launching it planned to launch it in the middle of 2020. Pandemic hit us pretty hard, just like it did every company, everybody. And we ended up launching a little bit later. We ended up launching a lot more different than we had planned. And long story short, we're doing great. We're really excited about where the brand is. And we did it. We launched it. And now on to the next milestones.
Well, you certainly are embodying all that, because I wouldn't have reached out to you to have this conversation if you weren't.
Yeah.
So I love how many times I heard the word passion and purpose. Like, those are some of my buzzwords. The P in pursuit. So this is the PRST is pursuit with the vowel stripped out. I don't know why I like to do that, but that's what it stands for. The P stands for passion. So the four things when I started the brand that I thought were really important were passion, relationships, self, and time. Being mindful of those and prioritizing those. And then as you just describe what Municipal is about, helping people get unstuck, I'm thinking, man, I'll just roll pursuit up into Municipal and call it a day, because that's exactly what the brand is. It's about helping people figure out what they want out of life, find that happiness, and then pursue it, which is what you've done. And,
look, there's so much about this brand, I think, that represents all of us, and not just Mark, me, and Lev, the three co-founders, but the entire company that left whatever they were doing to come and join our cause. Is that at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel like they matter and their work matters, and that is something for me that has really pushed me to make certain career decisions, certain relationship decisions. Absolutely. And if you think of a brand, Municipal, we really wanted it to be a brand that mattered to people, and not just, again, a transactional. I get the most pleasure when people reach out to me kind of unsolicited and say, wow, your brand is really inspiring me to do X, Y, and Z. And I do like the ones like, oh, your hoodies are cool. Great. But I really love it when people take it that next level and say, this thing that you did or this thing that Mark said really resonated with me to want to make a difference. And we like to celebrate that. We like to celebrate people that are putting themselves out there and are the only thing maybe they feel like they have is an idea and self-belief, and what we hope to do through living it ourselves is to inspire people to go for it and to demystify that journey somewhat, because it is really scary when you're first getting started, or even before you start, and to do that, because we're generally self-conscious creatures. We generally are wired to a degree to avoid risk, especially if we build up that risk so much that it feels existential. You're either gonna succeed wildly, or you're gonna fail massively. There's a lot of times we'll make that fool's choice, like, oh, it's either gonna succeed this way or it's gonna fail like miserably. And I've lived that. That fool's choice. But what we want to be about is helping people kind of understand and appreciate that those two extremes really only exist in your head. That once you get in it, the real magic is just staying in the struggle. Because if the longer you hang in there, the more likely it is that you will be successful. And I put successful with a capital S and in quotes, because you really start to redefine what success means as you get into it. And we're living that. If you had asked me in 2019, the day before I walked out of my previous job at Callaway and into Municipal, what success would mean, I would articulate it a certain way. And now looking back on it, I would articulate it in a much different way. Which I think
how's it changed? How's that definition changed for you?
Well, much more aligned to our vision and purpose, which I described as really inspiring people to go for it, inspiring people to be unstoppable. Where I probably would have defined it in 2019 would be much more quantitative. We want to have these sales goals. We want to have these KPIs that we're achieving. We want to have this sort of distribution. We want to have this many consumers. And when you start something from scratch, this is going to seem obvious to everyone. You don't know, and boxing yourself into some made up bullshit number is really setting yourself up to be is really anchored to those two extremes I was describing before. Is you're either going to be wildly successful. Oh, we blew through that. We thought we would do X and we did 2X. We thought we'd have this many consumers and we have 1.5 many of that consumers. Wildly successful. Or we thought we'd do X and we did 0.6X. And we thought we'd have Y many consumers and customers, and we had 0.4 many. You see, like, oh, we failed. Did we? We launched the thing. We got it off the ground. We started from nothing. In 2019, nobody knew Municipal existed, and now hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people know it existed. Like, so you really start to shift the things that are important to you to, and it starts to really orient itself more if you're careful and you're wise, which you probably aren't when you start. You really start to feel like, oh, okay, as long as we're moving towards this vision and this mission, then we're going to be great. Because another cliche that we're learning firsthand is like the road to the top is not straight, and it isn't. It isn't I-5. It kind of goes from San Diego all the way up to Portland, like it does, or say Seattle. It doesn't look like that. It is a series of side roads, and occasionally you'll get on an interstate and you'll be rocking and rolling, and someone's going to hit you in the face, and you're going to go backwards. You may have to go back a couple exits to get back on the right road, but it is not a straight line. And so the more, I just can't emphasize this enough, the more that you know your values, the more that you are tethered to the sense of purpose, the more likely it is that not only are you going to achieve some semblance of success, but you're going to have a lot more centeredness, peace, and happiness in the pursuit, the journey doing it. And I personally don't think that you really can appreciate that until you do it, until you try something that is way outside of your knowledge base, or certainly outside of your comfort zone. It is trial by fire. And I guess people that do startups a lot, there's that cliche is like, you jump out of the airplane and you figure out how you're going to land. You don't have it all perfect. So if you go into these things, any kind of change, any kind of certainly new business venture or entrepreneurial endeavor for the first time, that if you have perfectionist perspective on it, or perfectionist underpinnings or perfectionist mentality, then you need to blow those expectations up before you get started, because if you don't, you're going too soon.
It's hard to trust that if you focus on the qualitative things, that the quantitative will follow. But I really do believe, you have to be mindful of the numbers, you have to be responsible, but I don't think you can make them your focus, especially when you're building something like you are with Municipal that has a big mission to it, where I think there is a little bit of trust and faith in this process, that there is, like, we have our vision, we believe in it. I've heard you use the word manifest before in some of these interviews I've listened to, so we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but I believe that plays into it. And that's why I love this story for people who listen to the podcast and watch it, is because it isn't perfect. It is scary, but that's like where all the beauty is. And I think having the ability as a person to be able to wander a little bit, like you said, it's not a straight line. It's in that wandering and testing and trying and experimenting and learning and pivoting. It's where that's how you get your final product. Like, what I'm doing today is a direct result of the 7 years prior of trying all these different things with my advisory firm and content creation and figuring all these things out. And then it's like, oh, this is why I was doing all that. But if I would have been, so focused on certain numbers or staying on this straight path, I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn to be doing what I'm doing now, which is ultimately, I think, what my purpose is for right now. So I love the example of that. Going back to when you left and the fear of leaving and the unknown, how did you prepare personally? And then how did you prepare with your family to say, all right, we're going to make this big change. I'm leaving this comfortable job, which I think comfortable jobs in the corporate world, there's a false sense of security there, because while you are high up, you are a number and you can be let go. And we've seen those things happen, where if you bet on yourself, like, you are in complete control of your success to some extent. So how did you get the family on board, and how did you prepare for that transition?
Well, it's like when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, right? It's or right now. That who you surround yourself with, starting with who you choose to be your partner in life, is probably the most important decision we make. And my family has always supported me and my career and my personal development. So it wasn't like a big cathartic thing. It just felt like a natural evolution. And if anything, I think my wife specifically was sort of surprised that it had taken me this long to actually go for it. And when I finally started to talk to her more concretely about it, she was all in. And I think that's probably some practical advice for people who are interested in making a change, is to take the emotion out of it and really start to articulate what the pros and cons are, and then what the risks are, and then let yourself articulate what failure looks like. And you can, when you do that, you can sort of realize what parts of the failure that's holding you back are purely fantastical and aren't real. So like for me, I'll give you an example. So risks. Okay. Well, the rewards are obvious. We create something we're really proud of. I get to build a team of people that are all aligned around the same sense of purpose. We all generally share the same values. We get to build a culture from ground up. We get to build a culture that is more reflective of my values. And the extrinsics of doing that, of having ownership, are pretty undeniable. Mm-hmm. And also getting to be in business with people I knew I would learn a lot from, Mark and Lev, is all on the pro side, the plus side. The minus side, okay, it's a lot of personal risk. Mm-hmm. Definitely there's a short-term financial hit by virtue of doing a startup, leaving a predictable income stream. I mean, these are like the real things, right? Mm-hmm. Leaving predictable income stream, leaving an industry I knew really well, leaving an industry that I felt like I was respected in, also leaving a place that I liked a lot. So it wasn't like I was running from something. I was wanting to create something different. And okay, those are all cons. And then what's the real risk? Okay, the risk is Municipal doesn't succeed. We can't get it launched properly. We end up being impatient with the time it takes to develop something, and we have to close shop. Okay, what does that look like? Well, if we do a decent enough job, there will be some value to the brand. How much? Who the hell knows? But there will be some value to it. So it wasn't like this was all useless waste of time. There are other risk. Okay, I would now be some period of time out of the corporate world. So what would I do then? Okay, my risk, the scary part would be I would convince myself that I wouldn't be able to get a job after this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've spent 25 years building a career. Of course I would be able to find a job somewhere. Mm-hmm. I'd probably be able to have my choice of what I would want to do. And I'd probably be able to pick somewhere that would be geographically attractive. Okay, so that's not a real worry. Mm-hmm. In reality. So let's cross that off the list. Okay, now we have one alligator or shark that's at the bottom of the pit as we cross this tight wire that we can remove. And it's just a good exercise, because what you start to realize is, okay, it gets down to kind of one or two things that are tangible and are certainly risk. And in our case, my case, family's cases, we're going to have some period of time that's going to be belt tightening. It's just, there's no doubt about it. We've made this much. It's going to be significantly less for a period of time. And let's figure out how long we can go with literally 15% of what we were making for a while. Can we do it? Well, we're going to find out. You know? So that's kind of I hope that is helpful, because I went through the exercise and it really demystified these existential questions that you think are in front of you. And what you realize really quickly, if you do it, is, okay, there's nothing that's really all that existential, that there's definitely risk involved, but it usually is not anything that you can't overcome. Mm-hmm. And especially if you value the things that I think we all should value, which is personal growth, learning, and having these life experiences. So in the 3 years we've been doing this, have I been successful? fuck yeah, I've been successful.
Mm-hmm.
Because and my wife and I said this to each other, we were watching Wall Street season 1 on HBO Max, which is Mark's kind of a follow documentary about Mark's entrepreneurial world, and Municipal is a part of it. And they kind of, they document our beginning and the pandemic hitting, mm-hmm. and all of the shit that was thrown our way, from having our financing pulled by our financing arm, the partner that was bringing the financing kind of very abruptly, to Mark and Lev and I having to fund the business, to not laying anyone off. I'm really proud of that. To launching the company in the middle of the pandemic, to now where we are today. And my wife and I just turned to each other and we were like, we didn't sit on the sideline and wonder. Like, we went for it. And what's that worth?
It's worth a lot.
That's a success, right? Okay, is it different than what we thought? Yes. Of course it's different. Of course the company and the business and the brand and the way that we interact changed. And for a year, the 15 people that I was so excited to work with on a daily basis, we weren't even in the same office for a year, and we still haven't been. So different than what we thought. But we're here and we're in the struggle, and I'm a much more fortified human having lived through that. And knock on wood, everybody in our family and in our immediate family stayed healthy through the pandemic. And I feel like now as a human, then I have a life experience and personal experience on being able to deal with things that typically I would have probably told you 3 years ago, no way I'll be able to survive that. Mm-hmm. So, that's the part about success and moving towards the vision that really shifts over time.
I always talk about it's a leap of faith when you take this chance, and that through planning, different ways of planning, you can bring, like, you'll never bring the two sides together, but you can bring the two sides of the leap closer to it. So the jump is not as scary and you have a higher jump of success, which is exactly what you described. And figuring out, all right, we're going to have less income. Can we save in the time leading up to give us some runway? Like, all these things that we can address. To your point, a lot of the fear, as my barber, I did a video with my barber. He says that fear is false evidence appearing real. That most of our fears, like you said, they're not really fears. You can address them and break them down. And then there's like one or two. And then when you dive into those, it's not as bad as what you might make it up to be in your head. Hey there, I'll be quick. I apologize for interrupting this great conversation with Harry Arnett, but I could not have the co-founder and CEO of Municipal, a great brand, one that I look up to, on Our Pursuit, and not mention the Pursuit brand. Did you know that Pursuit has a clothing brand? One of my goals for Pursuit is to have a lifestyle brand that complements the Pursuit mindset. So something that you, a Pursuit individual, would want to wear to show everybody that you are controlling your destiny, you're following your passions, you're creating your life of maximal happiness and minimal regret. So head on over to pursuit.co. Up top, there's the store. We got new sweatshirts coming out. So I wanted to put this in now because we've got a drop coming. This sweatshirt here you may have seen in other videos, is coming this fall. In the back, you see some of the old hoodies we had. They're still on the website. Really just have small sizes now. Would love for you to go pick those up. They're on sale. Clean that rack up so I can fill them up with this sweatshirt. We got some more hoodies, some t-shirts, and more to come in the future. But yes, Pursuit has a lifestyle brand. I would love for you to rock it and show your desire to pursue your life, find the passions in your life, be creative, express yourself, and create a life of maximal happiness and regret. So go grab your hoodie, your t-shirt, your hat, whatever it might be, and represent Pursuit while you are on your pursuit. All right, let's get back to the convo with Harry. When you were doing that analysis and you're walking through all of the risks and everything, was there ever any doubt in your mind, though, that you would succeed?
Yeah, of course.
Well, but
I kept telling myself the other thing, which is if you're not scared, then there's no courage. You haven't set your goal high enough. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. But then I really just kept reminding myself that the things that are important to me, personal development, learning, surrounding myself with people I love, doing work I love with people I love. All those things would be there. So if Municipal crashed into the ocean and for whatever reason, and it was a financial failure, and we, risked a bunch of cold hard cash into it, that I did have enough self-belief that I and Mark and Lev and the team would create something of some value. What that meant, I don't know. Would it be worth X? Don't know. Would it be worth 100X? Don't know. But yeah, there was definitely that, risk reward equation that we all go into. And I think that I embraced the fact that I was scared of it. I embraced the fact that that there was nervous anxiety around doing it, because what I equated that to was, if we're not nervous, then it doesn't mean that much to us. So let's be nervous. Let's embrace that. Let's embrace the fact that the stakes are high, and there's, especially in my role as CEO and co-founder, there's nowhere to hide. And there's no denying the fact that that if it did crash in the ocean, almost everyone would be just fine, with one exception, maybe me. So, but I also, that was one of the reasons I wanted to do it. I wanted to see, do I have what it takes? And does the team have what it takes to do something special and do something that we felt like was meaningful? And I think the other part about it being scary is we didn't want to do something small. Like, we wanted to set a flag in the sand that we want to do something that's important and significant and makes an impact. And it mattered that we did it. So yeah, you should be scared. You should feel a little daunted by the task. And it's like what I always tell myself when I start a workout for the day is like, the first 5 minutes is not going to be all that fun. But after that, it gets a whole lot better. And that's definitely been the case.
You mentioned self-belief, and I'm glad you addressed the fear and the self-doubt, because I'm, good or bad, I'm an eternal optimist. And maybe I've never set my goals high enough, but I don't think there's anything that I can't do. Like restaurant business, it's the hardest business to start. I feel like if I wanted to start a restaurant, I could do it, because I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to work hard. Like, I'm just going to do it if I set out to do it. And sometimes I lose the fact that, like, not everybody's wired the same way. And that doesn't mean that in my eternal optimist, I don't have those concerns and anxiety doesn't exist. So I'm glad that you addressed that. But ultimately, you had enough self-belief to overcome those concerns and anxiety. Otherwise, you wouldn't move forward. How were you, over your career, over your life, able to build that self-belief in yourself?
Well, I don't think it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and it doesn't exist purely in a pure form. It is absolutely connected to a passion for learning and a curiosity, because what fuels the self-belief for me is and sometimes it gets disconnected from self-confidence, and you got to bring yourself back to the practical variables that support that self-belief. Otherwise, if you don't have those, then you're just arrogant, right? And so what's the self-belief come from? I am an avid learner. I'm passionate about learning about new things. I'm constantly looking around for inspiration. I am the internet was probably a bad thing for me, because I get stuck in rabbit holes on subject matter, and I have a kind of a natural curiosity about stuff. And so with that fuels the self-belief, because I know I very rarely will make the same mistake twice. And just in again, the most pragmatic terms, so much of what comes with starting something new, starting a new endeavor, especially if you set your if you set your goal high, is how quickly can you try stuff, fail, of course, and either move on or do it a little bit differently. How quickly can you succeed and then double down on those successes? Because again, I don't know a single time that someone or something started out to do something. They created a strategic plan that was a work of art. They'd hang it in the wall of the Louvre and they followed it perfectly. And sometimes you'll read business literature that describes it always in retrospect as something that was pulled off perfectly, but I don't know anything that in reality was done that way. It's always, it's always a journey that is not a straight line. And so, self-belief without a foundational bunch of other stuff to support that, experience, learning, curiosity, then it's just arrogance. And if you're arrogant, you probably aren't going to be successful because, Justin, if you started that restaurant, you're going to go in thinking Fishers, Indiana is ready for East Indian fusion. Okay, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But if they aren't and you're arrogant, well, they're going to come. I know they're going to come. Then I bet your restaurant's not going to be successful.
Right. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But that's not what you were saying. You were saying you have enough to know how to be flexible, how to be passionate about the consumer walking in, the prep that goes in, the preparation that goes into whatever that decision is that you want to make to get started. That when the whistle blows and the game starts, then there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened up to that point that is going to lead to successful, and you have confidence in that. You don't necessarily have a predetermined expectation of what it's going to look like exactly, but you kind of know that by virtue of having started, and if it's something you're passionate about and something that you're going to outwork people on, then it's going to have some value, right?
Yeah, no, totally.
It may end up being a grilled cheese stand, but it's going to be something of value, right? Yeah. Because that's just who you are.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you pinpoint on that I was hoping you would is that going back to the self-belief, some of our self-belief just comes back and looking at the successes we've had in life and building our own self-belief. Like, I've done this before, which translates into this next thing I want to do. It's not the first time I've done it or I've done something similar to it. I think a lot of times we don't take time to celebrate our victories in life. We focus on the things that didn't go right. Where if you just sit back and look at all the things you've accomplished, even the little things of like, maybe you put yourself through college, you figured out how to pay your way through school on your own, or you landed your first job on your, like, we've all had successes in life that show us we can be flexible. We can learn on the fly. We can pivot, which is all you're going to need to do in this other. It's just a different vehicle, a different way of doing it, but you've done it before in other ways. And so that's where I was hoping some of your self-belief came, was just the things you've done in the past helped showed you could figure this out. I want to make sure we hit on a couple of things. I'm going to throw out all of the fun questions at the end because they're fun questions, but they're not really meaningful. They're just like get to know Harry better. So I'm sure we can find those. I want to hit on the cool things that Municipal is doing that most brands aren't. And I love like the mentor program that you have, and then the collaboration with, athletes, but also college athletes as well. Like, and I see that now hearing more about the vision of Municipal and like what you want to build. But how did you guys come to doing the mentors? Why did you want to do it? Why is that so important? And what are you hoping to get out of that? Again, we wanted to be a brand that matters. And I think that it was a natural thing for us to do, is to create a platform where people who are looking for a connecting point to be able to create a better life for themselves, a better momentum. And we felt like we had a large enough footprint and a large enough audience at this point, almost 3 years in, that
that we could create that and do it as kind of a beta. We're gonna allow ourselves to not be perfect. It's gonna be a little messy, but we really felt like over time we could be the type of brand that could literally be a connector for thousands and thousands of people to get mentoring and counseling and be able to feel like they're a part of a bigger community of people that are interested in doing the work to create a better future for themselves and their families and their communities. So that just seemed like a natural thing for us to do. It is anchored to our sense of our vision and our mission of doing that. And I think that, again, we had to live with a lot of the things that we were just talking about, which is we're kind of conditioned as experienced business people and brand builders that to launch something that is going to be like airtight and so well thought out. But we also knew that if we really held ourselves to that standard, we might never do this. So let's just go for it. Let's create a feedback loops for the people that are involved to let us know how to get better. And if we hold ourselves to that standard, that our goal is really, let's just get better. Let's be better tomorrow than we are today, and so forth and so on. Then it could be something that's really meaningful. And again, it might be a lot different a year from now than what we're envisioning. But we're really committed to the notion that this will be something that will matter to the people that are involved in it. And so far, so good. We did it. We launched it in March, and we've got 8 people that are mentoring groups, anywhere from 5 or 6 people all the way up to 10 or 12. And we really feel like we want to scale that and someday have hundreds, if not thousands, of mentors that are mentoring thousands and thousands of people on a regular basis. And if we could do that, then we're probably going to build a better community of humans that are out there trying to make a difference.
I've got my eye on the culture of creativity. It's not up yet. But I think it's really cool. I'll link to it in the show notes so people can go check it out. But it's giving you access to the brilliant minds of Municipal doing what they do best and teaching right now. And then I think that's really cool. And, from a brand building, I haven't built a big brand, but I've built miniature brands. Like the sense of community, it's a buzzword right now, but the way you're building community is the right way. Community isn't just saying, oh, we have all these fans. It's community. It's purpose and helping them, and then they become rabid fans. And I already see how the flywheel works and how it's all connected, and how it's not only good for Municipal, the brand, it's good for the people who support them as well. And it just keeps on feeding itself. So I think it's awesome. It's a great idea. And again, it's inspiring to pursue, given I have my little collective and things I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not too different.
Well,
so
it's,
cool.
It's a continuum. That's kind of, that's the way that we looked at the community of people, is it's a continuum. And I think the fallacy is because of the media landscape, we only are introduced to people that are on one side of the continuum, and generally they're the people that have made it. They're successful, and we see them in their most fully realized form, done in a way that is polished up, and there's a veneer on it that seems infallible. And that's not any one of our own experience on that continuum. From Mark, who would definitely be seen by the outside as someone who has absolutely made it. He's got everything he'd ever imagined. And people don't remember or appreciate the journey or the continuum. And so what we want to do from a brand perspective, and just connecting it to our values, is we want people to see it is an arch. It is a continuum. And the key is just, if you're on one side, is to get going. So you'll see that in the people that we present, the stories that we tell. We're just starting to do some NIL deals with young athletes. Is we're going to show you the other side of the continuum too, the people that are just starting, and they are the ones who are trying to make it. Mm-hmm. So we're a brand of the made it's, the make it's, the made it's, the making it's, and everyone in between. And we're celebrating the struggle, the journey, the mindset that it takes to get started. And that's something Mark in particular is really passionate about, is to reach out to those that are on one side of the continuum or somewhere in between, and keep encouraging to just get going, get going. And you can see that in the brand.
So this is the final question. I have a few more minutes left with you, but it ties into this. So it's perfect. You set up perfectly for me. You mentioned before on an interview I was listening to about, we have the ability to write our own story. So this is where that concept of manifestation kind of comes in. You're putting your intentions out there, putting in the work, which that's the part of manifestation that everybody skips over. You can't just say you want it, it's going to happen. You could state your intentions and then go put in the work, and then like good things end up happening. But can you take us out talking about this concept of the ability to write our own story, how we do have more power and the ability to do that, and how you've lived it and seen it, and kind of what would you end with? That'd be a great way to close.
I'm on the continuum, so don't ever look at me and think he's made it. I'm not wired that way. But the thing about writing our own stories is really something that has resonated with me. Is I don't want to be a character in someone else's book. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be that. I want to write my own book. I want to be the star of my own book. I want to be the protagonist of my own story. And with that first comes what's the end one? What do I want the end to be? And knowing where I'm starting is so the end in practical terms is, what's the compelling vision I want for myself? What kind of human do I want to be? And how do I want to live my life? That's my values, right? How do I want to let my really be led by my values? And how do I want to really make a difference that I'm on planet Earth? And I want to make every room that I'm in better because I'm in it. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a pretty lofty vision. That's a pretty lofty thing to aspire to be. And then I want to take radical responsibility for everything that happens in my life. That is putting myself in the center of this book. That's my book. It's not someone else's book. It's mine. And if I can keep those things in front of me as I continue on this journey, as I'm on the continuum, then that vision I have for myself will materialize. It's going to manifest itself, and it's intentional, and it's purposeful. It doesn't happen by accident, and it's tough. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to hold yourself to a standard, because you don't always live up to it. So, when you fail, recognize that you've fallen, be kind to yourself, get yourself back up, dust off, and continue on to the next page of your book. And I think in the most concrete terms is like, I didn't want to be somebody sitting around waiting to be invited. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be that. Like, if you want to have a party, if you want to go to a great party, then have the party yourself, and put yourself out there. There's a lot of vulnerability that comes with that. You're probably hearing that. Oh shit, you're out on the ledge. Mm-hmm. Right. At the end of the day, we went for it. And that's kind of what I wanted my story to be. And I wanted to live up to that. And I'm hoping that all the actions going forward will support that, and when I'm out of being centered on that, that's when I know I'm not at my best.
Well, I think that's a great way to end. Like I said, I always have the fun question. So I had an idea as you're talking. Next time I go out to San Diego to visit my friend, I'm going to drive up to Carlsbad. I'll bring my camera crew, which is
Let's
me.
do it.
And then I'm going to come by Municipal and I'm going to hit these like 5 quick questions with you as
we'll
like,
do it up. We'll do part 2.
Afterward.
Part
there
2.
You go. Hey, you better be careful when you put stuff out there because I hold people accountable to those things.
That's manifestation. Put
Exactly.
it out there in the universe. The universe will listen.
Exactly. Well, Harry, I want to thank you for your time, for sharing your story, for what you're building at Municipal. I know you mentioned the partners and the co-founders, but I just hope you realize that I hope you don't do that to diminish and be humble about your role in this. They are very important parts of the story, but they don't diminish what it is that you're doing and what you've done as well. So I just want you to know that I, as a fan of you and of the brand, appreciate everything you're doing, your story, and your time. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's very kind of you. Thanks for having me.
And everybody, thanks for joining as usual. It's an honor to be a part of your pursuit, and let's keep pursuing.